Hey y'all, welcome back to Healthy Design Functional Medicine. We have been talking the past few weeks more about like diet and fat loss and kind of how to go about that and just different things that incorporates. We talked a good bit about exercise. We mentioned it, I guess I should say, several times. So I thought today maybe we ought to talk about exercise. This will probably be something we talk about over a few different podcasts just to try to keep it kind of more manageable and not too long at one time. So today we'll focus on like a very kind of basic program, and definitely very beginner level. Uh, Probably we'll get into how you can kind of use it even like at a more intermediate level as well, because one of the big things or a few big mistakes I think people make is, well, they're looking for the new magic pill or big secret that's going to help them get all their goals achieved without having to do anything. And it just doesn't work that way. You've got to put in the work, you've got to be consistent over time. That's what tends to help people get the results they want. Even if they have a little mess up or a hiccup here and there, as long as they're consistent over time, the results tend to go up. Um, the other thing is they either want kind of the new thing or that big advanced program cycle, advanced fat loss dieting techniques. Most of the time, the vast majority of people don't need those advanced techniques, advanced tips, different things like that. You'd be surprised how far you can get just by focusing on the basics and again doing those basics consistently over time. um, for example, I've heard different bodybuilders talk about like the people who tend to do the best in it. Yes, they have good genetics, but anybody who's at that level, they all have very good genetics. Some have a little bit better than others, no doubt, but it's more the ones that can be more robotic in nature and just keep doing the same thing day in, day out. With bodybuilding, it's every single meal they're eating, every single workout they're doing, and just doing that consistently. Every single meal, every single day, week after week after week, year after year after year. Those are the ones that tend to do the best. That gets really hard to do just from a psychological standpoint. We need kind of that break. We don't tend to like that monotony. You know, a lot of people don't like change, but a change every now and then is a good thing. Change constantly can be overwhelming, but no change at all, kind of the two ends or two extremes of that spectrum are both problematic. Somewhere in the middle is where people tend to find their sweet spot. Okay, let's talk about exercise. I would say the biggest principle here is to find what it is you can do and you can do consistently. And we can always progress. So in this case, let's say we have someone who is a complete beginner. They've never touched a weight in their life. And let's say they can't even do body weight exercises. Well, just while you're sitting in a chair, do things there. You can do hip flexion. You can kick your leg out straight. You at least have the weight of your leg that you're trying to raise up. And this could happen if someone has a serious illness going on or something they're recovering from, injury, surgery, whatever. But there's something you can do. So the key is just find out what you can do. That's going to be a very extreme circumstance where people can't do anything at all with their body weight, but it could be there. You can progress that by getting ankle weights. You could do some upper body exercises sitting down using like a band. That's what I have this handle for. You just hook it in, hook that around a band. You can pull or you can turn the other way and push. You can curl. You can do a whole bunch of things with bands as long as you're creative. Is it maybe the ideal thing? Maybe not. Strength curve maybe doesn't match, blah, blah, blah. So we could get real scientific and kind of make arguments there. But then we're kind of focusing more on the minutia rather than the big picture and what really matters. When you need that last 1%, minutia matters. Until that point, the big basics are kind of where you want to stay. So that's what I would say to start with. Pick maybe 4, 8 exercises. If you are stuck where you have to sit down, we can't work some of the main patterns of movement that we have during life. I do like to focus on those because, again, those are the ones that occur during life. So we want to be strong for those things. And that's one of the big reasons we want to exercise is we want to be strong or at least maintain our strength, and we want to maintain our muscle mass. If we can do those two things, it helps us to prevent falls. It helps us to stay independent and be on our own as long as we possibly can, which is going to improve our quality of life. And I think that's what we're all interested in. So, the goal doesn't have to be the biggest, strongest person ever. It's just to be stronger and maybe a little bit bigger than what you are now, so that you can have good health and hopefully be independent as long as possible. So, maybe sitting down, we have like a push, we have a pull, and then we do the knee up and then kicking out. Maybe you can put a band on your ankle and pull back. Well, that way we've worked a lot of muscles in our legs, not quite everything. We've worked just about all the muscles in our upper body too, some more specifically than others, but that's fine. We're kind of working those big patterns that we're going to encounter during daily life. And so if you're not stuck in a chair, if you can stand up, then we can work on a squat pattern. We can work on a hinge pattern. Again, push and pull, and that could be a vertical push, vertical pull, or more horizontal. And so that kind of brings us to how maybe we could split this up. So let's say you're at that level. Maybe it's just body weight to start with, and then again, bands, or even like soup cans, just something that gives you a little bit of weight, ankle weights, dumbbells. There's all kinds of options on that. But let's say, so you'll have at least 4 exercises: 1 pull, 1 push, 1 kind of squat pattern, and 1 hinge pattern. You could add some other things on, like you could do something for side delts if you want to, since they're not really being hit, a curl, and maybe some kind of tricep where you're pushing down, or just some kind of arm extension. So even if you add those 3 in, 7 exercises a workout. And to start with, even just doing 1 set, you will get results. If you've never exercised before, that 1 set is going to give you a lot of results. Now, there's going to come a time where you're probably going to need to do a little bit more than that to keep getting results, or to keep going at that same pace. But you can do that 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and be just fine. So we're looking at 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes max. Probably 30 minutes if you went through that twice. So 2 sets of everything. But initially, just start with 1 set. Maybe do like 1 or 2 warm-up sets. So let's say you got a push, you put a really light band or really light dumbbells, just to kind of learn that movement pattern. And then you go a little bit heavier. So let's say you have a weight. By the time you get to rep 10, you feel like you could do 10 more. Fine. Put the weight down, go a little bit heavier. Let's say this time, by the time you get to 8, you feel like you could do 15, 12, 15, or whatever. Good. Put the weight down. Then we're going to do 1 work set where you go a little bit heavier, and you go and you get whatever rep number you get. People like to, again, get in the minutia. Oh, you've got to do 5 reps to 8. You got to do 10 to 12. It's got to be 20 plus. The research shows you're going to get stronger in that range, but you can also get similar hypertrophy, so building muscle improvements, from like 5 to 30 reps. The trick though is you got to get pretty close to failure, meaning you can't do another rep. I don't think you necessarily, especially starting out, have to go all the way to failure, because probably the way you're going to do it, you're going to end up wiggling around, and that's not going to be good. So going to where you feel like you can maybe get, it slows down. So like, let's say you're doing a kind of pressing motion, you're good. Now we're at like rep 8, and it slows down, and then you do 9, and it really slows down. Maybe you could get 1 more, but I would say in that case, just, lower the weight, put it down. It's probably enough, especially starting out. Maybe even that rep 8 when it first started to slow down might be enough. That's going to send a signal to your body to build up, because it's like, oh, we haven't done that before, so I want to make sure we can do that more easily next time, so you'll build up stronger, have maybe a little bit more muscle mass. And then if you do that for each exercise, you're going to be tired. You worked, all the muscles in your body, so this just shows it doesn't take very much. You don't have to get real fancy with things. As you get more advanced and you've done things, you may need to get a little bit fancier, but some of that is just to do something different. So it's more psychological than it is physical. if you follow along with some of the workouts I posted that I do, you'll see like, I do change things up from time to time. Part of that, I just like to experiment and see what's going to happen with different things. Um, and so I'll try stuff. I'll try just about anything. If it doesn't work, then I just stop. I don't have to keep doing something if it's not working. And then I might try something new. It didn't work. I go back to what has worked in the past. Um, and so, sometimes you'll see like I've done, a few different training cycles and I've got the same exercise or very slight variation of it in each single one of those. I like the exercise. It seems to work well for me. Why should I change anything up? If it's not working, then it's time to do something new. But when it's working, just keep doing it. So again, I think a very basic thing is say just 2 workouts a week. So let's say like one workout, we've got a horizontal push, a horizontal pull. We do a bilateral squat, so 2 feet down, and then let's say we do like a single leg RDL, Romanian deadlift, stiff-legged deadlift, where you just kind of hinge, and then we've got a curl, we've got some type of push down, and we do a side raise. All right. The next workout, so wait 2-3 days. The next workout, let's do a vertical push and a vertical pull. Maybe we'll do a lunge, so it's a little bit more one leg, but it's still that kind of squat pattern. And we do more of a deadlift motion where we're picking something up to get the hinge in there. If we did a band curl, now we can do a dumbbell curl, so it's just a little bit different. Or we can add in like a supination. So like before, maybe we just kind of kept our arms here and curled. Now we'll kind of start this way, and as we curl up, I'm not saying you'd start out here. I'm just trying to show my hands. Sorry about that. But hands kind of, thumbs facing forward, and then turn to where palms are up. And that's going to be a little bit of a variation. And then we could do like an overhead extension for triceps rather than here. All right, you got a little variety in there. You could add in something kind of going across your body for the cable side raise, just to get a little bit different than here, or with the band. All right, you're done. 7 exercises, twice a week, 1 set. After you've done that for a while, I feel like you need more, go up to 2 sets, maybe even 3. You could do that for a long time and keep getting results. So that's kind of where I would say to start with things. Just keep it very basic. I do think a key principle is progressive overload, but people often misunderstand that. And it can be dangerous, I guess, in a sense, for beginners to do it if they have the wrong interpretation of it. All we want with progressive overload is that you do get progressively stronger. So you add weight to the bar, a heavier band, thicker band, whatever, over time. That doesn't mean every single workout you need to add a rep, you need to add weight to it. No, it's over time, do it. So, early on, you'll be able to add weight or reps pretty consistently, probably every workout for a while, and then like every other workout, and then it kind of slows down some. But as you get more advanced, it may be months before you can add a couple pounds to something, and that's fine. But so we just want progressively over time to keep adding that weight, not add something every single time, no matter what. Because the reason why I say it could be dangerous for a beginner is, again, kind of that form part. If you really start pushing, you're probably going to start compensating. So, let's say, instead of having this kind of nice where we're, getting a great contraction in our chest and shoulders and everything's nice and smooth, we add weight too fast. So now we're kind of doing some of this kind of stuff and just anything we can to move more weight. Well, we're not doing the same thing anymore. We want that same movement pattern. We just want to gradually over time keep strengthening it by adding to it. So progressive overload is key for progress, but again, it's over time. Look over the long term, not short term, workout to workout, day to day. A lot of times people, again, will talk about volume, and there have been some studies coming out saying that volume's kind of the key driver for muscle growth. And it's definitely a big contributing part to it. But if we don't have tension on the muscle in the first place, then, the only way you're probably going to get any kind of result is to go super high in the volume, because there's nothing that's taxing the muscle to start with. So there has to be that tension there, and that's kind of what the weight is providing. Is providing mechanical tension on the muscle that has to work and push against, and that's what we want. And so that's why we want to gradually increase that over time, and then we can start kind of on the lower side of volume and then build up. And so I guess, again, if this is more for beginners, let's talk a little bit about volume and intensity. This is where it can get tricky, because people will use volume to mean a lot of different things, and they will use the term intensity to mean a lot of different things. So you may have two people talking about volume intensity, but they're actually talking about two completely different things. So sometimes people will, let's talk intensity first. When we're talking about weight training, when I refer to intensity, I'm talking more about how hard something is in terms of your maximum. So let's say, whatever weight you can lift for just one rep, that's 100% intensity. You can only do that one rep, you can't do more. And so we want to do more than just one rep when we're trying to build strength, trying to build muscle, at least most of the time. Really, for normal people, average people, we don't need to test our one rep max. It's not going to be important to us. Now, if you're a power lifter, one rep max comes in it's pretty important, considering that is kind of your sport, that is your job. What can you lift for one rep? That's going to take on a huge amount of importance. You're still probably not going to be doing one rep maxes all the time. That's not going to be a very smart way to do it, but you get my point. So, but sometimes people are referring to intensity as kind of like how out of breath they are, how intense it is that way. That's not the same kind of intensity. It's hard. I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's not hard like a maximal effort. And so when we're talking about intensity, we're talking more max effort, how much can you do one time? That other part of intensity, that's more of an endurance-based kind of intensity that's different. And so now with volume, people, they use a lot of different ways to determine volume. Some people will do like total tonnage. So basically the total amount of weight lifted. And for that, it's the weight on the bar times the number of reps that you did, total number of reps you did, and the total number of sets equals volume. For some people, they're talking more kind of like the reps per set. Other people are talking about the number of sets they did. It just gets tricky when we're talking about that to kind of have the right definition so that way we're talking about the same thing. So again, for me, the intensity side is kind of how hard it is in relative max effort, to one rep max, different things like that. So, I mean, again, if it doesn't just have to be that one rep max, let's say you can do a 100-pound bench press and that's your 8 rep max. I mean, you can do 8 reps, but when you try for that 9th one, you can't. All right. If you got that weight, and so again, 100 pounds, but you only do like 2 reps with it, that's not very hard because you got 6 more you could do. Now, if you go to 7, that's still going to be pretty hard, and that will probably be enough of an input signal to your muscles for them to build up. So that's why, again, I don't think we always have to go to complete failure to get some results. That kind of ties that in a little bit. If you are only doing like those 2 reps, all right, well, let's go back. So you do those, 7 reps on that one, and you do 2 or 3 sets of that. By that 3rd set, you may not be able to get 7 anymore. You may only be able to get 5 or 6. And so we know that we've taxed the muscle. That's a clear sign that we have. And so we only need those 2 or 3 sets in that case. Now, if you do just 2 reps, but you could have done 8, you can do 2 reps, set after set after set after set for a while. There's going to come a point to where it's going to be enough of an input to create some results. It's just going to take a whole lot of sets to get there, a long time to get there. So it's more efficient in that sense to go a little bit closer to that failure point, to that maximum, and rest appropriately and do another set, or just start with that one set. So hopefully that makes sense with volume and intensity and why people can be talking about different things. Because I think a lot of times people think the workout's only hard if they're out of breath, if they're sweating, or and or they feel like they have to throw up. I don't know who this quote is actually attributed to. I think the first person I heard it from was Charlie Francis, but the quote is, any fool can get another fool tired. So just because you were sweating during a workout, just because you were out of breath during a workout, and just because you got sick from the workout, that doesn't mean it was a good workout. And actually, if you got sick from the workout, you can make a pretty strong argument that it was an ineffective workout. It wasn't a very good one. So again, if you're just a complete beginner, pick 4, maybe 8 exercises. I don't think you really need more than that. Start with 1 set. I wouldn't go too low on the reps if you can help it, but I mean, you got to learn kind of what weight is appropriate for you. So there's room there. Just try to keep form well and keep it good. And so in that case, maybe working with a physical therapist who can show you this, or a personal trainer who's good, just somebody who knows what they're doing. And doing it in person might be more beneficial than just looking online. I do think you can find good examples of things online. There's no problem with that. But the problem is you don't always know if that's what you're doing. And so then having that other person who can watch you while you're actually doing it, that can make a big difference on things. Also, I guess, always make sure you clear this with your doctor. If there's some medical condition issue going on that prevents you from working out, then don't. Unfortunately, get that straightened out so you can start working out. But make sure you're cleared for things. We definitely don't want to start exercising in the attempt to make things better and actually make things worse. That's not what we want. So again, very basic program. Make sure you're cleared for it. Pick 4 to 8 exercises. Just start with 1 set twice a week. You can do that for a month, 2 months, maybe even several months, and then just build up, go into 2, maybe 3 sets. And that's where, again, even at an intermediate level, you could probably follow something like that. Maybe then you want to split it up a little bit, but the same basic principle, do like a lower upper split or something. And that way you're still only working out each body part twice a week. But then you're working out 4 days a week. Not everybody can work out 4 days a week, then stick with those 2, or maybe add in a 3rd day if you can do that. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. Today we're talking more just very basic, very beginner. Just start with something, make sure those last couple reps are hard to do, but not that you can't do them. That should give your body enough of a signal to build up stronger and better for next time. And then just do that as long as you can. And when you need something different and not getting the results, that's when we'll change and do something different. So that's it for today. Next time we'll talk maybe a little bit more about intermediate, kind of what you want to do. I'll share a little bit more about kind of like what I've done over the years and kind of how things have progressed. I've been exercising a long time. I still consider myself kind of more in that intermediate, maybe early advanced stage. I just think we could be there for a very long period of time and not really get past that. Some of that depends on how you train and what you do and different things. So anyway, sorry for the rambling. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was helpful, especially if you're just starting out. I just wouldn't complicate things too much. Just keep it real simple and keep those basics there. Milk all the gains you can from them before worrying about changing anything up. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.